Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're taking a look here at Gala. We're obviously going to draw out some new Fibonacci retracement levels, kind of see what's going on here in the general sense of things, and also get perspective on what's going to happen next. How much further can this possibly go, right? That's generally what we're going to be looking at here today. And if you are new to the channel, just know I'm not a financial advisor, right? I love teaching people to trade, and if you want to become a better trader, you can go to cryptocash.tech. That is the site, the link in the description below to become a better trader, essentially. I have a trading academy, community, and signal group where we all learn and grow together. It's an amazing experience. I also send out signals for my trades. We took a good 112% from Ethereum here recently in 20 days, also 80% from BNB in 15. The list kind of goes on here. We had some healthy profits, 42% in 11 days from another Ethereum trade. And my favorite one here, which is this guy right here, 194% from Solana in 3 days. In fact, we just opened another Solana long here early this morning, and it's already in profit. So looking really good there in that sense. Also, bear in mind too, I use Bitget as my favorite exchange in the world. You do need a VPN to register or to essentially be able to utilize that, but pretty much every exchange that allows leverage has that requirement now. So again, make sure you register for that because the link down below will give you a $10,000 prize pool monthly, and all you need is a profit-loss ratio and trading volume to qualify for that. Furthermore as well, of course, I have you covered, and as my community members as well. Thank you to ExpressVPN for allowing us to give an extra 3 months free with a 12-month plan. It's already pretty inexpensive. Just awesome to be able to have them with us as well. So here's what we want to look at for Gala. A few things that are pretty obvious. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of these descending trends. Obviously, the descending trend is finished. Okay, and then we also have this, basically this. Let me go ahead and pull this one up. This previous resistance level / support level. You can see how that kind of held up there. And then what we want to do is draw out some new fibs here. So we'll go ahead and use the larger time frame to get larger Fibonacci retracement levels, and you can kind of see how well they're matching up here, right? We had this support level there at 0.236, and we got this resistance here at about 0.786. So the bottom line here is that these areas are key levels. In other words, the larger the time frame, the more absolute they become. We could also draw out some more recent ones here and pull it down and kind of get some more, kind of a little more specific to the recent time frames. But generally speaking, the concept here holds true there, right at that 40-cent mark is a pretty strong resistance level. And obviously we can see that being tested here today, right about 41 cents actually. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm misspeaking. I apologize. It's 4.1 cents. Big difference. So 4.1 cents is essentially the current resistance level. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a look at some things here, kind of get perspective on what's going on. So take a look at the RSI, standard stuff here, well overextended. But in cryptocurrency, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's just going to sell right off. There's a great chance we're going to see a larger pullback, typically to 0.618. That's usually the standard. But 1.618 is also equally as strong of a support and or resistance. So if we can close above 0.618 today or 1.618, we'll be in much better shape to essentially allow for that to continue. I don't think that's likely though. Typically the halfway point is where we're going to see the retracement. So somewhere in the range between right there at about 2.8 and 3.1. Okay, this area right here should prove as a support level. We'll see what happens soon. Obviously, the price just spiked up. And in fact, you take a look at the 1 minute chart here, you can see we went from 3.1 to 4.0. That was almost a, well, hold on. Yeah, almost a 30% jump in about 5 minutes. So again, these kind of things can happen sometimes. I know Bitcoin spiked up a little bit, but it was nothing compared to even close to this. So that's really refreshing to kind of see this kind of volatility for a change. MACD kind of explains that we are well overextended. So there's no doubt that this continuation is nice, but is it going to continue higher from here? Well, it's really hard to say. The smaller time frames will help us understand that, but based on the daily perspective here, we're not overextended by any stretch. Even though we are kind of continuing, we're about 5 days into this push before it started to leg up significantly. Hypothetically, we've got at least a couple more days left of continuation. I wouldn't anticipate the price going tremendously higher from here. Just keep that in mind, because with this kind of volatility, while we have the volume to back it up so far, when we have this large of an increase in 1 day, it can spell a reversal. 75% in 1 day is a lot. And you got to recognize too, we're in a bear market. In bull markets, this makes a lot more sense, but bear market sustainability seems a lot less probable. So even though Gala could very well spike a little bit further for maybe a couple more days, I wouldn't expect it to stick around. So, why don't we take a quick look at some bigger picture stuff here and see if there's any key level supports. We can kind of see here there's a little bit of a trend where the price action stalled out there. Let's pull this over and see if that does anything for us. It's pretty much right there at that 2.272 level. What that basically means is right there at about 4.5, we could round up a little bit and say 4.5. That'll probably be a strong resistance level. I'd be surprised if we get it past that point. Obviously, this level here as well is pretty strong too. That's the double mark, the 2-point mark. So I don't know. Instead of speculating further, let's just go ahead and look a little bit lower. Oh, one last thing, really quick. Simple moving average. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at that. What do you know? Geez, look how interesting this is. Again, it's kind of hard to see with that background there, but take a look at this simple moving average. Look at that guy. Boom. Right there at that level, rejected right off the 200. So the 200 is a pretty strong resistance level. So keep in mind, until we can break through the 200, there's a great chance that the current shelf for Gala is 4.1. Okay, so 4.1 strong resistance. Bear that in mind. If the price were to come back up there, maybe a potential shorting opportunity. All right, so take a look at the 4 hour. Let's quickly just get perspective here on this. We're well over 70 on the RSI. We used it as a bouncing point. This is a common characteristic in cryptocurrency. Whereas instead of breaking down below 70, the price action continues higher from there. Okay, using that most previous high as a low and essentially a new support level. So for lack of better terms, that's bullish by any stretch, but you got to keep in mind too, on the 4 hour time frame, it's less likely for the price to stay up here for too long. Okay, so now that we're kind of in the secondary overtime, if you will, it didn't have enough time to consolidate, so I think the probability of the price pulling back makes a lot more sense. Okay, so again, just keep in mind pullbacks are seeming more likely at this point just based on overextension, even though it could still kind of push a little further before it does that. If we look at TD sequential, you can see it came up to a 9, and the price goes sideways and then ranks up again. So that was technically enough consolidation to warrant this next leg up. So hypothetically, we're only 3-4 hour candlesticks, basically 12 hours into a potential, it can go kind of far. It can be upwards of 48 to 72 hours for this push. Okay, so again, when we see a 9 on TD sequential on the 4 hour, then a pullback is much more likely. We're only 3-4 hour candles into it, so honestly, it's probably another 24 hours of bullish momentum that could very well continue. So just be mindful of that, be ready for it. But I think the general consensus here is that things are getting overextended, and it's probably likely going to reverse itself within a day or two. Between now and tomorrow, honestly, though, anything could really happen. We haven't seen this kind of volatility in a while. There's probably likely a fundamental catalyst. So I do recommend doing your own research and seeing what's going on here with this. But based on Fibonacci retracement levels, we've already confirmed that right here at about 3.6 is a potential support and resistance level. I say potential because we haven't closed above or below that level yet. Until we do, we don't really truly know how it's going to respond. But we do know the 200-day simple moving average is averaging itself out of the 4.1 cents. So that kind of tells us a lot here in the sense that the immediate shelf, the immediate ceiling is right there at that level. So again, it very well could do a retest of some sort eventually. But for right now, we shouldn't expect the price to come any higher than 4.1. Okay, it's kind of what we're seeing here so far. Furthermore, let's go ahead and take a quick look. Obviously, the cloud's going to be kind of irrelevant here based on the simple fact that it just ramped up so fast. We can look at TD sequential and kind of see if we are overextended, which we are, but let's be logical about this because these 3 or 4, actually 5 candlesticks are just barely above the previous. And if you don't know this already, TD sequential is probably one of my favorite indicators. What it does, it takes the 4th previous candlestick and counts up until it hits a 9. When you hit a 9, that's considered overtime. The likelihood of it pushing past a 9 is less likely. Keep this in mind though, this 9 right here is more like a 5, and we got a 6, 7, 8 here. So I would say we probably should only experience another hour of continuation on the upside if we were to, followed by a nice little healthy pullback. So I think, me personally here, based on how hard things have pushed in this short amount of time, it makes sense for the price to come back down before it comes up further, right? So again, you just kind of recognize that. Let's take a quick look at the 1 minute here, just to kind of get perspective. Because if we turn on the volume weighted average price, just to get the understanding here, look at that standard deviation. Based on volume, even though we have an increase in volume, you can see how much more higher the price action is going based on the amount of volume leading into it. So even though it's starting to average itself out now right at that resistance level, we are at a position right now where it makes more sense for the price to kind of pull back and reject instead of going up right now. Okay. And again, with the volume weighted average price, keep in mind, this is the volume weighted average price line. So that's the VWAP line, and these are standard deviations. So when the price goes outside that standard deviation, it typically pulls back to contract. That's because we have not enough volume for the price point to be able to sustain that price. That being said, the most common characteristic for a VWAP pullback is for the price to come back and bounce off of that level. So if we were to see a bouncing point, it would likely be right in the 3 cent range, almost exactly at 3 cents, because that's right where it's averaging itself out. Okay, so I'm willing to speculate that 3 cents will be a bouncing point. In fact, I'm going to set an alert for 31. and see if we get some kind of confirmation at that point to go ahead and take entry. Between now and then, I honestly would be careful and just kind of steer clear of this. It's one of those situations where, it's best not to FOMO in, and it's also important to recognize that we're overextended and the pullback makes a lot more sense. So again, I'm not the type to want to jump into something like this, but a short seems much more appropriate than a long at this point. If you're going to take a long position, I would recommend waiting. Again, there is, of course, the possibility it could continue, but why go in on a gamble? This is very risky. I would recommend being careful and waiting for confirmation. To me, a bounce off the VWAP would be a good confirmation. I would also like to wait for the candlestick to close here on the daily. See if we can close it either above or below that point at that 3.6 cent mark. Okay. So again, hey, congrats to all those community members who are long on Gala right now. Very well done. Oh, I hope you didn't short this guy recently, because it definitely looks like it's here to stay. And technically speaking, we're not really anywhere close to where it has been before. So there's strong potential for Gala to continue higher. Just bear in mind, traditional markets, they're doing all right. Bitcoin's doing okay. But for the most part, I wouldn't expect Gala to continue much further than a couple of days. So, okay. Hopefully that made sense now I described that. Sorry, I kind of went in circles there for the most part, but it is what it is, right? I would recommend watching the whole video if you haven't already to make sure you understand kind of where I'm coming from here. But Gala is definitely looking like it wants to continue for a little bit longer. But I would wait for the candlestick to close today on the daily at least, so we can wait for confirmation. Just my 2 cents. I hope you learned something here today. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one.